Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. This is Ringside Cinema, and I am your host, Mike. Today, we're going to be looking at NXT call-ups post WrestleMania. Now that Stand and Deliver is in the books, and you know what? Last year, the main event of Stand and Deliver was Obafemi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans. And now, 1 year later, they are competing in their first WrestleMania. So, the bar has been set for future call ups, and we'll see how this year's crop of NXT call ups will do. I've compiled a list here based on the results of Stand and Deliver and which brand these superstars might show up on. But before we get into all that, hit that like and subscribe button as I produce weekly wrestling content here on this channel. And I am going WrestleMania. I will be going to Las Vegas next Monday. I will be filming more content than I did last year for the channel. I'll have live reactions to Raw, SmackDown, and WrestleMania. So you do not want to miss my Vegas vlogs and what I'm doing during WrestleMania week. So subscribe today. So, NXT call ups, obviously, we do look forward to them every year. You know, the fresh faces on the main roster, and who is that going to be this year, right? So let's start off with our former women's champion, I might say, because Jacy Jayne lost her NXT Women's Championship to Lola Vice, who I thought may have made this list because I didn't think that they would give her the championship because I thought for sure they were going to just strap the rocket to Kendall Gray and have Kendall Gray win the NXT Women's Championship. But Lola Vice is your new NXT Women's Champion, and our resident NXT Super Senior, who's refused to graduate, I think it's time to give her her diploma, send her to the main roster, but would she take Fatal Influence with her? Does the WWE see value with Fallon Henley and Laney Reed with Jacy Jayne on the main roster, or do they want to keep them down in NXT, where you could have essentially Fallon Henley maybe go over to the NXT Women's Championship scene? She could fight Lola Vice. You have Laney Reed, who could go for the NXT Women's North American Championship, but also you could keep them together and have them go up to the main roster. But again, I do think this is something we do have to think about because if you remember years ago, the WWE called up the Authors of Pain, but they didn't bring Paul Ellering with them. So it's one of those things where perhaps maybe we'll see just Jacy Jayne on the main roster while Fallon and Laney Reed stay down in NXT. But if they do come together, I think that opens up a whole new fresh scene across the board, whether it's the World Championships, the mid card titles with the Intercontinental Championships, the U.S. Championship, or even the tag team title scene. Because when you look at the tag team title scene, obviously right now we've already lost Rhea and Io from the tag division. We're probably going to lose some more tag teams because there's so much star power there that eventually you're going to have to split them off and send them back to the singles titles. But I do think with Fatal Influence, you can bring in a new tag team with Fallon Henley, Lady Reed, kind of replacing one of those teams. And who knows what's going to happen with Asuka and Kyrie. Um, I mean, are we going to see Kyrie finally turn on Asuka? Or are we going to see, is that going to be another tag team lost? So again, we kind of need to freshen up the tag team title scene there with Fallon Henley and Lane Reed. But also, Jacy Jayne kind of fits in with either the Intercontinental Championship on SmackDown on Raw, the U.S. Championship picture on SmackDown, or even both world titles. Because let's be honest here, I mean, they've been waiting for Bianca to come back from this finger injury, and Jade's title run hasn't really been that good, and not even Rhea Ripley can save it, unfortunately. And when you look at Jacy Jayne, I think again she could fit anywhere between the world titles and the mid card titles, and she has that history with Stephanie Baker, where even if Liv Morgan wins, I think you could revisit Jacy Jayne, Liv, and Stephanie Baker away from the world title scene as a way to introduce Jacy Jayne to the main roster audience because of the history where Jacy Jayne did upset Stephanie and win the NXT Women's Championship. So ultimately, I'm gonna say that Fatal Influence goes to Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. Now, let's stick with the women's division because this is a little tricky. Because Blake Monroe did not win the NXT North American Championship back from Tatum Paxley, who I probably would have put on this list. Because similar to Lola Vice, where Tatum's been down in NXT for so long, you would think at some point that she would be caught up to the main roster, and especially, she can slide right in on Monday Night Raw with Lyra and Bailey, but Tatum is still your NXT Women's North American Champion, and Blake Monroe is not. But do you keep Blake Monroe down in NXT for another year? Give her a run with the NXT Women's Championship, have her dethrone Lola Vice at some point this year? Or do you just move her up to the main roster? Because similar to Jacy Jayne, I think Blake Monroe adds so much to all the divisions on the main roster, all the championships pictures, so to speak. So you could really slot her in anywhere on Raw, SmackDown, or you can keep her in NXT. So again, it's a little bit tricky because I could see them keeping Blake Monroe down in NXT to give her an NXT Women's Championship run, but at the same time, I think she's been down there long enough. I think we just need to bring her up to the main roster at this point. I know when she first debuted on NXT, fans were like, "Hey, why is she down in NXT? She needs to go to the main roster." So yeah, I think it would be best to bring her up to the main roster at this point because keeping her down there just to have her go for the NXT Women's Championship, it seems like a little waste of time when you can move her up to the main roster right away. So to me, I said put Fatal Influence on Raw. Let's put Blake Monroe on SmackDown and make SmackDown glamorous. Now, speaking of AEW, let's talk about Ethan Page and Ricky Saints, who I also think should be main roster bound because technically we have seen Ethan Page on SmackDown when he was with Chelsea Green, and I really like that pairing. I wish they would kind of continue that, but it does seem like the WWE does not want to continue the Ethan Page Chelsea Green pairing. So I think maybe you bring in Ethan Page, Ricky Saints as a tag team, freshen up the tag team title scene. I mean, at this point, both Raw and SmackDown tag team titles needs new faces. It needs something to revive them because goodness, SmackDown's tag team division last year was absolutely insane. Here we are a year later, and I mean, look, I'm happy for Damian Priest and R-Truth, but I mean, look what the SmackDown tag team division was last year, where we were all disappointed when they didn't put the TLC match that we eventually got at SummerSlam on the WrestleMania card last year. And then you look at the Raw tag team title scene again. Even when the Usos had the tag titles, they didn't do anything with them. So maybe with Ethan Page, maybe with Ricky Saints, maybe they can finally do something with them. I don't really think they're going to do anything with them, even with Logan Paul and Austin Theory as champions. So, yeah, I mean, hell, honestly, could you imagine if the WWE had actually played into Cody Rhodes' AEW history and had Ethan Page and Ricky Saints be the ones that Randy Orton was talking to and form like a new legacy with Ethan Page and Ricky Saints instead of Pat McAfee? And you can catch my thoughts on that up here. It's a long video, but trust me, it is 100% worth it to watch every second of it because there's a lot to break down in that video. So, Ethan Page, Ricky Saints, I think ultimately I could see them going to SmackDown because again they are friends with Cody Rhodes. So I immediately just think, okay, they're going to go to SmackDown. And last but not least, let's talk about this man right here. Who will say his name and where will he appear on the main roster again? I think Joe Hendry is bound for SmackDown. You look at kind of where he was on John Cena's last show. He was on SmackDown during the holiday special. He already has ties to The Miz, so he could easily fit into SmackDown with a feud with The Miz. Plus, could you imagine The Miz, Kit Wilson versus Joe Hendry and Jelly Roll? Joe Hendry, he does concerts. Jelly Roll does concerts. Hell, you could have Kit Wilson and The Miz do slam poetry. You know, they could interrupt a duet concert between Joe Hendry and Jelly Roll. You know, we know Joe Hendry and R-Truth are good friends, so he could fit in there as well. So, yeah, Joe Hendry, I think it's time for him to come up to the main roster. He's done everything down at NXT, and I think it's time to make believers out of the WWE Universe on the main roster. So let me know in the comments below. Did I leave anyone out? Is there anyone else you want to see go up to the main roster from NXT in 2026? And where do you think these superstars I named will go and what brand they will go to? Drop a comment below. And as always, I've been your host, Mike, and you've been watching Ringside Cinema.